When you talk about metadata in each of the packages, is there some piece of metadata that's included across every single type of package that is the same, that links them all together, some kind of asset ID number that lets you know that this one on this MVPD on this platform matches this one on this linear channel?
Yeah, there's ultraviolet, which is sort of the concept of it, but there's I'm at a loss. There's efforts going on now that of trying to create a standardized asset ID so that um, if X Studio creates it and then they syndicate it, that asset ID can carry through.
And it's not erased or eroded or anything.
Well, it's no, and that's the whole point. It's to become like a universal asset ID, and I don't want to say the wrong thing. Have you heard of ultraviolet?
There's no, but I've heard of IDER.
IDER, that's it.
IDER.
IDER.
That's for programming.
I had eBIF in my head, but it's IDER.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And
So,
that's a concept of IDER.
and that's like a UPS code or
Yeah, it's a there's a from my understanding, there's a group that manages it, and they will assign the asset ID. So if you have a series like Friends, when it airs on whatever network, and then as it goes through its many syndication windows, I mean this stuff might be around for 30 years, and that same ID will carry, so that there's a core set of metadata that follows with it. I think IDER is a great concept. Two challenges with it. One, you have to have content producers, distributors, everyone sort of subscribe or buy into it. That's the first challenge. The second one is it only really tracks a core set of metadata. Things like descriptions, actors, year of production, core things that you need. The challenge is that it's the additional metadata once someone gets a hold of it that changes. You take a series like Friends. Even when it aired on NBC originally, it's very different than when it's in syndication now. They edit, they add more ad time, so it changes the runtime. It could cut out a scene that maybe has an actor in it that's no longer valid. So you have to manage that kind of metadata. Over time, it's a constant management of the metadata. The thing is, there's probably maybe 30 or 40 standard metadata fields that apply across all platforms, but there's probably maybe twice as many that are unique to a particular platform, to a particular MVPD or distributor, to a particular piece of content. That's where it gets really fun. The challenge with metadata too, it's so unforgiving. It's either right or it's wrong. Video files, you can tweak a little bit. If the audio or the video level's off. But metadata, if there's a misspelling or you put a zero in where an O goes, you're in trouble. It's just so unforgiving, and metadata has to be exact. And I really think it's the sleeping giant. I think it's the biggest thing content providers and distributors are going to be challenged with as we keep moving forward is the metadata, just because it's so complicated.
the unforgiving nature of metadata is a fascinating aspect that I actually never thought about until you just brought it up. So give me an example from a network that you have had experience with.
Well, when you have one of the networks I used to do work with, they had purchased four network series, and each of these had probably at least 250 episodes each. So you're talking about 1,000 episodes of content. The head of acquisitions came to me one day and said, we can't find any metadata. We're actually buying the DVDs and pulling descriptions and stuff off that, because where they're syndicating from, as some of these series were maybe 10, 15 years out of their network window. What do we do with that? So we tried to help them to find all this 1,000 pieces of like descriptions, and the challenge we have though is that after all this was set, maybe a year later, as a network mandate, they wanted to add more ad time. So they had to go back into every episode and they cut out another 30 seconds or a minute. That changes runtimes. It could cut a scene out to where maybe a guest star was in. They're not looking at it from that kind of aesthetic level. They're looking at it, somebody's going in and it's more robotic and just cutting things out. So almost everything had to go back and you have to relook at it, because the last thing you want to do is promote an episode that maybe has a guest star in it that you've just cut the scene out. So the metadata, it's a living, breathing thing. These things continue to change, and you have to keep on top of it, and you have to monitor it, and you have to continually revise it.
Well, this seems like a pervasive issue. Who's doing it at a network now?
This is where many of the content providers are challenged, because we're now moving, you have to allocate resources into this new digital world. And these are things that are sort of evolving as this new advanced platform digital world becomes more prevalent. Right now there isn't anybody. What was happening was a lot of the programming and acquisitions departments whose, their resources are tight as they can be. There's nobody there doing this. Many networks now are creating advanced platform services groups that handle this. And, but my previous employer, where we were only handling the content that was hitting the advanced platform world, many of these series, because of rights, don't. So the idea of metadata has to be extended across everything that's on your linear channel. Or, if you might buy a series that's maybe only going on your website, or to help promote your network. It's becoming a very complicated thing, and again, it's evolving very quick and very fast that I think many companies and many content providers aren't prepared to handle yet, and it's putting more strain on already strained staffs. And it's a huge challenge.